Dr. Vanhoozer, you also spend a good deal of time talking about how pastors need to be prepared to make disciples by changing the social imaginary in people's hearts for the imaginary of the gospel. Does that mean that pastors need to be aware of what the culture is thinking on various topics in order to properly address it on the basis of the gospel?
Look, I think being a pastor is such a challenging vocation. You don't need a PhD, but you need wisdom. And I think it does involve helping congregations to be more mindful and self-aware that we all inhabit a culture, and that being in a culture, being enculturated, also includes being indoctrinated in a certain way. So I do think that pastors need to help congregations to understand the culture they live in. You know, for several years, I taught a class here at Trinity called Cultural Hermeneutics. And the whole purpose of the class was to help pastors become culturally literate so that they could help their congregations read the signs of the times. Because I think Charles Taylor is right. People in our congregations, if their minds and imaginations are taken captive, it's not because they've read, you know, a formal philosophy book. It's rather that they've drunk in the images and stories that are circulating in culture. So, for example, a person becomes secular not because they've read some science textbook, but just because we live and breathe the cultural air of a secular culture. And here's the sobering thought: going to church doesn't help if people are living out their culture's idea of the good life, you know? So these images about what the good life is are so important. And Calvin says that the church exists because believers need what he calls outward helps. And I do believe the church is a means of grace. It's the God-appointed means by which God invites us into and holds us in the society of Christ. That's Calvin's language. I think it's great. We become Christ-like in the society of Christ. And local churches perform such an important function, not least helping people get their imaginations around the story of the Bible. So I think the church is an outward means of grace when it helps people understand our contemporary culture in biblical terms.